Hey, and welcome to Glue Friday. Yes, yes, yes. We made it to another wonderful Friday. Okay, I'm on 5 minutes early. I always do that to give Facebook a chance to do what they call build the audience. If you've never done a live broadcast, that's what happens at the beginning, is that they send out a message to let people know that you're on live, and then it gives them a chance to say, so I'm giving you five. Hey, what's up, Vic? I got to put Vic on there because Vic always, Vic likes to let me know when he's here. Sometimes he runs late. But Vic, you know my belief. It's not late. Never late. It's always on time, as long as you get there. I actually wrote a poem once called about being late. And, and it was, I think it was called, by I can't think of it, but it had something to do with the fact that you're never really late. But sometimes we get caught up in thinking somebody is late and wasting our time, when in fact you don't know that they were in an accident, rushing because they didn't want to be late or waste your time. They knew that that's how you thought, and so they may have been in an accident, and it could have been fatal. And so therefore so now your last thought of them was a negative thought, and now you have to live with that. So so don't it's I try not to say it's not about hey, I'll get there when I get there, but always recognize that everybody's going through something, and if you have the right people with you, and if you're handling stuff right, less than 3 minutes before our message starts, then it'll be fine. If somebody has a habit of being late, well, then it really is incumbent upon you to change how you where you meet that person. If somebody's habitually late, you say, no, I won't pick you up. I'll meet you there. So you could be doing something already for whenever they get there. And again, hopefully they will get there, because you know that honestly they want to be there. And so that becomes the key. So what I've done, I've got less than 2 minutes and we'll start today's message. But I just want to welcome you again, and I'm gonna throw this here. San Francisco Giants, because Vic noticed that. I got on my Giants shirt today. Let me tell you one of the reasons I have the Giants shirt on. See, I like to. One of the things that you could be doing in this pandemic, but also in your life, is we dress consciously every day. Don't sometimes you pick out your outfit that you're going to wear the next day, or you got the big interview, you got a first, your date, you're going to casual, you know what you're going to wear. And so I that's what I like doing. So one of the reasons I'm also wearing this shirt is because, hey, what's up, Roger Carroll? I'm wearing this shirt also is because when 9/11 hit, after 9/11 and everybody needed to settle down, one of the first signs that we were back to normal was baseball. When baseball said, okay, let's play ball. We're American, let's play ball. And so to me, this reminds me that, hey, let's play ball. So, and that's what you have to constantly be doing, is recognize, okay, the game is not over. Let's play ball. Okay. So that's the kind of thing. So we got less than a minute to go for our message today. But that's one of the things you want to be doing. What's going on, Ronnie? Ronnie made it. Yeah, Monica Jameson. Ronnie made it live for a change. And again, come on, y'all. This is technology. And so therefore sometimes you get the broadcast. There's nothing wrong with that. The message, in fact, when you get the broadcast, the message is solidified. Okay, we're making the message here live, but when you get the broadcast, that message is solidified. And then, and then sometimes that's even better. Okay, but let's get rolling with today's message. Okay, so welcome to Glue Friday. And my theme today was going to be Fridays first. Well, it still is, but I was going to have come up with a lot of different people in history who were the first at something. And that was my original thought. But between Wednesday and today, what I thought about is, you know what? How about let's talk about why they were first in wherever they were first. And I think that the reason that they were first is because they knew to put themselves first. I think that's a more important first, is that they knew to put themselves first. So therefore, I decided that I'm going to remind you to connect to some of the firsts in your life as a way to increase your joy. I'm going to give you a formula, not rocket science, but a formula, a fun formula to remind you how to connect to the firsts in your life. And what that will do is increase your joy. So my message title today is First. It's foundation, imagination, risk, strength, and trust, because that's what it takes to be first. Foundation, imagination, risks, strength, and trust. But before I get to those, what I want to do is give you the glue, and not the God's love that undoes everything, but the actual glue that cements those memories for you. Okay, so what we're going to do is create and recreate them by using the alphabet. Now, if you like to put some in the thread, then that's fine. I'm going to go through the alphabet and show you how to recreate and create some firsts in your life. Put them in the thread, that's fine. But it's more important that you take some time for yourself, whether it's today or this weekend. Just take some time and go through your alphabet so that your memories can remind you of just how important you are, just how important it is for you to be first. Because the truth is, you contributed to all of the memories. So let's go through the alphabet and look at some firsts. First of all, the A. What do you remember your first animal? Your first animal. And I didn't say pet. I said animal. And you'll see why when I get to the P for pet. But your first animal. And one of the reasons I have animal on there, last night in my house, well, yesterday in the morning, I woke up and I heard a sound, and like it was somebody in the kitchen or something. And I went and checked, and it went away. And then, and then I thought I heard it. Well, by the nighttime, that sound came back, and there was an animal in my attic. And so that's why animal is in the A for me right now. I think about that, whatever that animal is. So we may get interrupted because I put in a call for them to come today to try to figure out what it was. But the A, think about, what was your first animal that you fell in love with? Did you like horses? Do you like lions? In fact, it just reminded me, there's an exercise I did in my job skills training class where you pick an animal. And there's 5 animals that determine the decisions you make in your life. There's you're stranded on a desert island. You've got 5 animals, and to get off of the desert island, you have to get rid of the animals one at a time. And so, you know what? I'm going to use that on Monday. Glad I reminded myself. Good. All right. So, okay, Ronnie. Yes, your turtle was your first animal. Okay. So again, y'all can put them in the thread, but I'm going to try to go through the alphabet. Every now and then I'll stop and put a little lesson to it. But also think about the letter A in first is ancestor. See, your ancestors, you were there. Somebody had to be first for you to get here. So think about your ancestors. And then let that bring you some solace and calm to say, wow, you know what? I think I'm going through something, but what did my ancestors go through? And that doesn't grab onto a particular race or gender. That's everybody. What did our ancestors, when you think about how far medicine has come, think about how now we talk about stress and autism, and how in the past, those kids were just considered to be retarded, and there was nothing that you could do with them. And think about the people who burned witches at the stake. So that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of stuff. You had raccoons, and I don't think mine's a raccoons, Vic, because it sounded like I would never get a clear sound on them, but it sounded almost like it was something that had to prance. I don't know. We'll see. But you know what? That ain't my category. Okay. So animals and your ancestors. Then the B. Well, what about the word born comes to mind? Somebody's the firstborn. Are you the firstborn in your family? Birth order makes a difference in how we look at our personality. So, there's a lot of studies that go into that. So, and then born, but what about, did you have your first child? And and somebody had to be born first. So think about your firstborn. Think about what your birth order is, and then also the B could be for base, first base. And this is the baseball season is what's we're trying to come up, and whether or not they're going to play. But you got to get to first base. When you leave home, you go to first base in baseball. But also, there's one of those terms that we use in dating: getting to first base. Okay. So do you remember when you got to first base with somebody, or you let somebody get to first base? You shared first base. All right. Then there's the C, choice. What are the first choices that you make? And see, now that's what I'm saying. We don't really have to go, or everything ain't about history. What are some choices that you can make right now? Sometimes the first choice is the one that you need to go with. So think about the choices that you make. Think about some of the good choices that you made, especially when they were your first choice. What did you choose? And then even the day is date. Yeah, who was your first date? Think about your first date, not with anger. Oh, I'm glad I didn't stay with them. Not important. Remember, I said that the memories, you are still a part of the memory. So it was a good thing you had that first date. You got it out of the way. A lot of times we don't date the first person we date. A lot of times it's not somebody we particularly like. It's someone that we're brave enough to date. And you say, okay, good. Yeah, because I really like so-and-so, but I'm scared to ask them. And that's the guy, right? I'm scared to ask so-and-so, so let me ask somebody else. And then I at least get the feel I'm getting, and then you got the girl maybe thinking, oh, I hope so-and-so asked me, but let me go out with this other guy so that they'll know that I'm interested. There's think about all of this. To see this, I'm saying you could be laughing as you go through your alphabet, all right? Okay, so think about your first day. And also, what about your first day? Everybody has had a first day somewhere. First day on the job, first day in a new home. In fact, June 1st was my first day as a resident, a legal resident of North Carolina. That's when I signed my lease in June 2010. But that was my first day. But my first day living in Charlotte actually was July 10th. Because I moved, once I signed my lease, then I went back to Chicago and lived out the month of June, closing out my bills and stuff. And then I matriculated down to Charlotte in July. So I had 2 first days. So think of what were your first day. Also, what about your first experience? And that could be anything. Your first experience of what? New foods, a new place to live, a new job, a new neighborhood. Think about your first experiences, okay? And then what about your first friends? Who was your first friend? We tend to say, I'm my best friend, but your best friend wasn't necessarily your first friend. So who was your first friend? And then what about some of your first friends as you matured? First friend in elementary school, first friend in junior high school, first friend in high school, first friend at the job. See, there's a lot of good first friends that we have. And then even as I mentioned school, what about first grade? Yeah, see, first grade. Yeah, but where we started talking to kids and learning, because they say, what we used to have a joke in our projects, and I grew up in Grant projects. See, there's a G, and we used to say that somebody got left back in kindergarten because they didn't know how to play. Okay, so that's really what you mostly doing in kindergarten is playing, but first grade you start to learn a little bit more, even though that's changed now with preschool. Okay, but first grade, but also first game. What was your first game? And that could be the first game you played in sports, or what about the first board game you played? When did you start playing Monopoly? A lot of people's first game was checkers. You usually learn how to play checkers before you learn how to play chess. And then, what kind of, I know in the projects I grew up in, again, sometimes, depending on when you came downstairs, you didn't automatically get into the game. So there's a lot of first games we had. What about your first heartbreak? Think about whose name can you put on your first heartbreak? And then also, whose name can you put on the first heartbreak, because you broke somebody's heart too. Okay. I also like to remind people that we break our own heart through false expectations. We say we hate somebody, hurt attached to expectation. And we talked about hate on the last broadcast. But when we have this false belief that this is the person for me, and then they show that they're not, then we say they broke our heart. But we actually, in most cases, break our own hearts. Whole new topic. Okay. But who was your first heartbreak? Can't you smile about it now? Because here you are still being able to think about it. And what was your first instinct? What was your first instinct to do what? But let's bring that to the present, because a lot of times we need to go with our first instinct. Think about the things that you do, and what was your first instinct? How did you feel when you met a certain person? A lot of times you're right. It's a tough spot to be in, because we're also judged. That makes us somewhat judgmental. But you know what they say, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. So therefore, one of my prayers is always to be less judgmental rather than non-judgmental, because you are going to have that first instinct when you meet somebody. They're going to make you feel a certain way based on another person. So sometimes you got to go with your first instinct, but what is it? And then what about first impressions? We hear that a lot. First impression, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. I don't believe that anymore. I think you do get a second chance to make a first impression, because the truth is who you were that day and who that person was that day will change. So you do get a second chance to make a first impression, but because the first impression is now, well, this is who I am today. Now, if you're still going to hold it against me with who I was yesterday, well, yeah, no, there's nothing I can do. But guess what? I'm okay with the fact that I don't have that. Since that's the impression that you have of me, I'm okay that we're not going to be together, that you're not going to hire me, that you're not going to let me come in, because we can't really be together anyway, since that's who you still see me as. If you don't see me as who I am now, then I have to let go of my impression. My impression of you was that you would evolve, but you have chosen not to. I got to move on, because remember our other part about first, put yourself first. Take care of you. Don't get so caught up in how somebody else feels about you that you lose sight of how important it is to be you. And I got you. Yeah, I have to laugh with you, Vic. There's Stratomatic baseball. That was something that we used to play a lot in Grant. That was one of our first board games that wasn't one of the first board games I learned, but one of the first board games that I fell in love with. As a teenager, we used to have a good time playing that. And Grant for Life, that's the slogan that we used in our projects, Grant for Life, because all of us, I grew up in the projects, and not one of those, violin stories about the projects. Oh, no. No, we had a lot of fun in our projects. When you think about it, we had 2 blocks on our projects, 9 buildings. 7 of the 9 buildings were 21 stories tall, at least 10 apartments on each floor. So we had the size of some people's neighborhood. We had 10,000 people, minimum. When you think about the fact that there's, at least 2,000 people in each of those buildings, we had 10,000 people. So a lot of times I laugh, because I say, if we had grown up on a block of houses, we know enough dead people that we would be all out of friends. But because we grew up in the projects, we know that amount of dead people, and we still have that amount of people that are still alive and friends and posted with us on Facebook. You have to find the positive, okay? That's what it's all about. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So first impressions, and then the J was next. Yeah, what was your first job? Think about your first job. One of my first jobs was at Stone Gym as a youth. Not as a youth counselor, but they used to call us junior counselors, and we helped run the center and so it was leadership training. See, a lot of stuff they put names on nowadays, but we've done them. But it was peer leadership, because we were junior counselors. No, first you were a trainee, then you became a junior counselor, then you became a senior counselor. What was after senior counselor? I think that was it. But you see how just thinking about that one part made me think about others and made me smile? That's the formula, y'all. Go through your alphabet and put all these people in your first spots. And therefore, they will make you smile, and you walk yourself through the trials and tribulations that we're going through right now. Uh-oh, here comes the letter K. Y'all know what's coming up. Who was your first kiss? Do you remember your first kiss? And so, it's like, but you know what, you can also, we don't have to make that a sexual thing. Didn't your parents kiss you? Didn't you kiss your parents? How about, don't you remember the first time you kissed your newborn baby or your little brother or sister? See, don't let your mind get stuck in someone. Stone was your first job. Yeah, Rick, right. Yeah, so yeah, memories are priceless. And what you saying is, Cecilia, I think what? I don't, because I'm not even up to the T. So she's but I'm glad that you're thinking. And that's really what we want to do, is find ways to make us think about ourselves, because that's the key. I think what, therefore I am. All right. And then the first love. Who was your first love? And what you even, and then as your definition of love changed, then that changed who or what your first love is or was or is. See, so again, it's allowing, my business is about controlling your vocabulary rather than allowing your vocabulary to control you. So don't get stuck with, oh, first love, that's it. What are they? Addicts have their first love, could be their addiction. But what are you addicted to? Addiction is not always about drugs, by the way. Addiction could be money. There's plenty of things that people can be addicted to. The M is for move. What was your first move? I relocated 3 times from New York when I was with the Wall Street Journal, but I actually moved from New York. I went away to high school and I moved to Massachusetts. But also, excuse me, what was the first move you made in chess? First move you made on a person. See, let your vocabulary go, and then you start thinking of some great thing. What about the first night? The first night that you were able to go out. You were the camp counselor. Oh, good. That was your first paid job. Good. Yeah. What about your first night? And look, if I ain't gonna put that name of Vic. Yeah, Melba. All right. But what was the first night? The first night that you were able to see, now my family, they putting up their first loves, and I know these people. I'm going to give them the shout out because they good people. Melba and Peanut. Yeah, all right. Okay. So, so what was about the first night? The first night that you were stayed out, that you could stay out late. And then actually, what happened when the first night you stayed out too long and you came home and you got that beaten? So see, it can really, connect you to another great thought. And then what's your first name? First name, your name is so important. I so often, and I was in a meeting not too long ago, and I said, well, how do you pronounce your name? And they said, well, either way is fine with me. No, tell people how to pronounce your name. I'm name sensitive because I grew up, my name is Rispodi. I don't give people free license to pronounce my name the way they feel like it. I tell them how to pronounce it. If they don't want to try pronouncing Rispodi, I tell them how to pronounce Sporty. Okay, and I don't allow them to call me Sport. It's Sporty. See, it's your first name, and you need to tell people my first night. See, there we go. There we go. I love it. Thank you, Deborah. See, there's that creativity. First night. She spelled night with a K. So my first night is now my husband. Yes, Darren. Hey, Deb, good to see you. Man, we used to, model together and do cotillion. So that's great. All right. All right, see, again, it connects you. First, what about the O? Obligation. What's your first obligation? It's to God, but it's to you because you were made in the image of God. So your obligations are things that you put first. What about person? First person, and that is saying speaking in the first person. Are you talking about you? Are you on stage of your life, or are you in the audience? So first person is important, okay? And then what about your first pair? First pair of what? First pair. Remember, we used to worry about getting our first pair of sneakers, first pair of pants. There's a lot of first pairs that you have. Okay. And then pet. And the reason, remember I said first animal, but could be different than a pet, because you could have a pet rock. So what was your first pet rock? What about the first pet? Your pet peeve, okay? Thinking about stuff like that, get your vocabulary go. What about your first reaction, the R, your first reaction? It goes just with the instinct as well, okay? But your first reaction. And then sometimes you have to think when you're making decisions now, is your first reaction the best one? Sometimes anger and fear or negativity are usually the first reactions. So really slow down and think about who you are so that your first reaction could be more in sync with who you want to project yourself to be. And then what about first Sunday? There's a religious. First Sunday. Every month is a first Sunday, and that's usually Communion Sunday. And then what about the T? What about your first testimony? And you know what? You may not remember your first testimony, but how about remembering your last one? See, we don't have to get so stuck with first that we lose sight of our last. All right. So and lose sight of our many. So you've got a lot of testimonies. So what was your first testimony that you remember? What was the first testimony you got last month? What's the first testimony you hope to get? Okay, because it's your prayers. Then the you. What about understand? The first time you understood. We learned through repetition. What was the first time you learned to really understand the word hot? You understood. You kept hearing hot, hot. Well, I don't get it. Your first time touching that stove and understanding it was hot. That's still going on in your life. We learn through repetition. So sometimes recognize that you're going to have to hear things again and again. That's why there is school every year. And then V, what's about the V? What about your first victory? But what is the victory? It depends on what your goals were and where you're moving with your life. So your victory could be in the past as well as in the present. What is your first victory? Because you can have your first victory today. The joke is that as we become senior citizens, we get a new victory every day because you wake up. Oh, I woke up, first victory of the day, which also moves us right into the W, which is the wish, the first wish. I always say that I reach one goal a day because my goal every day is to wake up tomorrow. So, so it's always, hey, what's up, Fruity? So it's always worth, recognizing that first wish can be attached to that first victory. Now, the X, you're going to say, well, what is going to put for the first X? What was your first xylophone? Now, maybe you never had a xylophone, but what about the first instrument that you played? A lot of us played the flute, the recorder. What was the first instrument that you played? And then the year. What about the first year? What was the first year that you did what? See, everything will lead you to a memory, and you can sit back and relax and just enjoy being with yourself. Okay, and then the last letter is the Z, and I put zoo. The first zoo. Yeah. What was the first time you went to the zoo? Which takes us back to the animals. What was your favorite animal at the zoo? And so what was the first? And when was the first time you went to the zoo? And what was the first zoo that you went to? And and isn't it interesting how zoos are different in different cities? They got different animals. And even you could, like in New York, we had the Bronx Zoo and we had Central Park Zoo. You think, well, the zoo is a zoo. No, the two zoos that had different types of animal and different atmosphere. So those are a lot of the first, according to the alphabet, that you can have and use to increase your joy and feel good about the first being you. So the poem I want to read today that connects us to the first is called Every Life, a Young Life. Every Life, a Young Life. And it's in my book, I Found Out I'm Living, which will be available online. I just ordered it, so we'll see when it'll be, but I'll announce it when it's time. But Every Life, a Young Life. Does mom lose her title as the years go by? Can dad no longer be someone's brother? When God summons us to his home, it's not because we're old, young, or other. For each of us starts the day anew with memories of lessons, not regrets. Today is another chance for me to be a part of your life, to let my memory help you pass another test. It's called the test of time, and we've all passed it. Eventually, it passes us all. Though I'll not be there now when you call me, smile, for you were always there when I called. Every life is a young life, for we each wait to start a new day. So let's rejoice and make the most of the time we share, for our memories will never go away. So that's why I say I wanted to connect you to your first memories in terms of your alphabet, because your memories don't go away and they bring you so much joy and laughter and comfort. But sometimes we get caught up in the hustle bustle of the day and we forget to think about how important we are and how much of a difference we make. I have a new email address for you. If you'd like a copy of the poem, just send me an email request to sporty@sportyking.com. And I will send you your own colorful, electronically autographed copy of the poem. Again, when if you want a copy of that poem, just email me at sporty@sportyking.com. Technology lesson. Once you email me, I can also then invite you and put you on my mailing list so you'll get my inspirational messages as well as my monthly fun letter. I don't call it a newsletter. I call it a fun letter. But if after you have emailed me, your security system will welcome me rather than kick me out as spam. And then you might not even notice kicking me out as spam. Okay. So email me if you like a copy of the poem. Meanwhile, let me just quickly tell you, what does it take to be first? We should still get to that. Okay. Foundation, imagination, risk, strength, and trust. So I want to run through those because all of those first that we just talked about in the alphabet, we still want to go back to those people who were first in history and you being a first. So what does it take to be first? Well, first of all, the F. The F is for foundation. And foundation, you see it scrolling across the bottom. You have to have your BS together. You have to have your BS together. And your BS is your beliefs and support. Your beliefs and support system. What are you using for motivation? See, what's your foundation for being first? What are you using? Are you using pain? Are you using regret? Are you using spite? I believe that a better source for your foundation is tradition, which is this is a family tradition. This is what we do. This is how we want to go on, or faith. Those can become foundations that will help you move forward toward being first because it gives you something that you can connect to with positive energy and make you go forward. And then you have to ask yourself, do you practice what you preach or do you preach what you practice? Because that becomes a part of your foundation. Do you practice what you preach or are you preaching what you practice? And I always say that that's what I do. I preach what I practice. Okay. All right. And so that's the F in first. And then the I. The I is your imagination. Check your view. VIEW. Vision, instinct, empower your will. Vision, instinct, and empower your will to do things differently. That's what your imagination has to be. Because see, when we decide we're going to come first, that means we have to say, well, something that was there already will have to be moved aside. And you have to empower your will. No, I got to keep pushing. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. Becoming first is not easy. So your will, it has to be pushed. That's your view, your vision, and your instinct will empower your will to push yourself to do things differently so that you can get to that first. But also notice how the words connected when I did the alphabets. And remember how the words connected me and allowed me to connect to past memories? See, that's the will. So that's what you want to do. The key is that you have to release yourself to absorb. Release yourself so that you can absorb. And that becomes the key for your imagination. Feeling good about yourself is a good choice, but it is a choice. You have to feel good about yourself, and that is a choice that you get to make. And that's why the next letter is in first is risk. It's R, risk, and it's an acronym. Recognition is success is key. Once you recognize who you are, when you know who you are, you have to know who you are because someone else will tell you who you are not. See, once you decide who you are, someone will say, well, no, that's not you. You can't do that. You're the wrong sex, the wrong height, the wrong race, the wrong education. See, you take a chance by being you, but it's a risk worth taking. If you want to be first, you have to take the chance on you. And that's what I call getting your personal win, WIN, what I need. Each of us has a personal win that makes us important, and therefore it allows us to become first in our eyes, most importantly. And then the S is for strength. Acknowledge your weaknesses, but focus on your strength. Acknowledge your weakness, but focus on your strength, not your weaknesses. How's your discipline? See, that's a strength. How's your discipline? What are you willing to sacrifice? Because you're going to have to sacrifice if you want to be first. What are you willing to sacrifice? But I also say, try filling in the blanks in this sentence for one full week. I like my blank. I'm good at blank. Try filling that in once a day for a full week. And you can't use anything that you used the previous day. And then after you do it, if that week was easy, do it another week. You know, they say really 21 days it takes to create a habit. Okay. But I say to you, just, you know, it's not even easy doing it for the first week, because a lot of times we don't focus on ourselves, and because we've been told that it's being vain. And, you know, but no, you think about it. At a job interview, they ask you about your strengths. They say your strengths and weaknesses, but you want to be focused enough on your strength so that you can minimize that weakness. And so add, you know, use that sentence on yourself. I'm good at blank. I like my blank, and I'm good at blank. And then lastly, the T in first is for trust. Trust. Your track record says that you've been through many trials and tribulations, many storms, and you've made it through every storm. Don't you trust yourself? Trust your track record. Laugh at your lack record. You've not come out unscathed. You've been tattered, but you made it through. You made it through. You were, as I wrote myself a note, not unscathed, but not eliminated. So you got some bumps and bruises, but you haven't been eliminated. So you have to trust yourself to be first. And actually, there's the key. You have to trust yourself. Do you trust yourself? But also, who do you trust? Because you won't be able to, you can't do it alone. So who do you trust to do the things for you that you'll need done that you can't do while you're focusing on being first? Athletes, you know, if they're focusing, you know, on the game, you know, somebody else has to cook for them. Somebody else may have to take care of the kids. You know, so who do you trust so that you can focus on being first? But most importantly, definitely, do you trust yourself? Do you trust yourself? You know, that's what it's all about. So that's what first is all about. But recognize that being first is a big responsibility. John 3:16 said, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." That's being first. That's what trust is about. Being first is a blessing that God has given you in assigning your life to you through him. Take care of yourself so that you can help those people who are trying to take care of themselves but need your help. That's what being first is all about. Thank you for joining in on the message, sharing it. On Monday, what did I say? I'm going to do the exercise with the animals, and it's called the desert. And so that really becomes the key. Been trying to do the second most important commandment per Jesus, because love thy neighbor as thyself means love yourself first. Exactly, Cecilia. Yeah, yes, the message is over. If anybody needs to go, I'm going to run through the thread. But exactly, how can you love your neighbor if you don't love yourself? It says, love thy neighbor as thyself. So if I hate myself, then that means I should love my neighbor as I love myself. So since I hate me, I should hate my neighbor. Good one, Cecilia. Yeah, so love yourself first, so that when you do give the love, you have a package that's worth delivering. And then we got some zoos here. Bronx Zoo for Victor, Bronx Zoo for Ronnie. And then Tony talking about her first badminton was the first game, and the first day of camp, first love. Okay. And all of those things that you can just add them up. Roger Carroll's in Chicago. So it was the Lincoln Park Zoo, which I went to, which is similar to the Bronx Zoo, more similar to Central Park Zoo. See, so those are some of the things that you can also do as well, is as you look at those things, you look for the similarities, then you could also look for and celebrate the differences. So this was Friday first, and first is foundation, imagination, risk, strength, and trust. What can you do in terms of those things, going through your alphabet to come up with those memories and really enjoy being first? So let me be the first to say, have a good weekend. It's a great day in Chicago. Oh, thank you. Thank you for bringing the sun. Oh, see? The sun and the sun. And it definitely goes in that order. See, that's what we have to do. Just let it go. And in fact, Vic, you got peace, placing eternity above chaos and evil. Placing eternity above chaos and evil. Remember that foundation? We talked about what's your faith. So if you believe that you're going to heaven, and that's more important, let go of this nonsense. Let go of this nonsense. The Brookfield Zoo, we got that other Chicago Zoo. Okay, let it go, y'all, and have a good time. I appreciate y'all coming on board with me. Always happy. And think about if there's ever a message that you would like me to cover, let me know, and I see if I can work that into the to glue, because we got glue Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But the number one thing we know about glue is GLUE. God's love undoes everything. Not that it takes things apart, but whatever has been taken apart, it will put it together for you. So we got a shout out to Cecilia from Roger Carroll, both of whom I met in Chicago as well. Okay. But I was clicking on, yeah, got it. Thank you, Tony, for a good weekend. Yep. And then this was first and last and best alphabet. First and best alphabet lesson of 2020. Right. See, there's I can go on and on. I love y'all. Be good. All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Ciao. Amen. Oh, amen is another good way to end it. A message everyone needs. Cling.